She's nothing more than a glorified maid with no education, Justin stated in a tone of contempt. My blood immediately heated. I glanced around the dinner table after hearing those nasty comments that broke the silence. Justin's parents, Evelyn and Richard, exchanged uncomfortable glances and made little effort to mask their bad feelings. Justin, that's enough, Evelyn murmured, her voice trembling a little. Well, it's the truth, Mom, he remarked, shrugging his shoulders as though it were the most natural thing to say. Eva, I'm just being honest, you know that. I had a lot on my thoughts when I looked at him. His gentle gestures and endearing grin now seemed like a cruel mask. And this was not the man I thought I knew. Is this truly how you view me? I questioned, sounding a little shaky. He didn't appear upset at all as he reclined in his chair. Okay, AA, don't cause a scene. Most likely, they want to know who they are speaking with. I was astounded by his audacity. I attempted to be calm, but I stopped myself because I thought my voice might shatter. My heart was pounding. I glanced at Richard and Evelyn to make sure they were supporting me. Richard just stared at his food, as if he had nothing to say, while Evelyn had a sad expression in her eyes. Justin's smile was the final straw. I pulled my chair back and got up, shaking hands. I said, "Pardon me," and turned to head for the front door. I needed to ponder and get some fresh air. Eva, hold on. Evelyn was crying out to me. She put a gentle touch on my shoulder, and I stopped. There's a mental health issue with Justin. Please don't judge us based on what he said. Dealing with him might be challenging. Her eyes were genuine as I gazed at her. I said, "He's never talked to me like that before." "I'm at a loss for what to think," a quiet voice said. "Please give it time. These issues tend to work themselves out." With a feeble nod, I stepped outdoors and felt the refreshing breeze on my cheeks. The last person I expected to be like that was the man I moved in with. His words were all I could hear, and they stung more each time. Justin soon joined me on the porch, acting as like nothing was wrong. "It wasn't necessary for you to depart," he remarked, treating the situation as insignificant. I tried not to show my anger as I said, "I can't believe you said that. Are you truly so unappreciative of me?" With a slightly angry tone, he replied, "Eva, you need to understand something. Your past held significance for my parents. It's okay to be truthful." I interrupted him after telling him that I needed some alone time. I had had enough of hearing it. He raised his hands in self-defense. "All right, but don't overact." I saw him return inside, and the door closed silently behind him. I felt the weight of his words against me. Although I had sensed his haughty demeanor previously, it had never been that overt. I visualized my mother, Sharon, waiting for me at home. I was already getting tired of her constant need for care and weakness. My doubts and anxieties were deeply rooted by Justin's statements, which caused me more pain than he realized. I no longer thought I had discovered a life partner or someone with whom to start a family after tonight's events. Standing on the steps with the chilly night air on my skin, I resolved not to let this define who I am. I felt proud. I glanced back at the house one more time. No matter how attractive or successful Justin was, it would be the beginning rather than the finish. I had to find a way to overcome this. "I'm out there saving lives while you flounder in mediocrity," Justin growled as he threw his keys on the kitchen table. The room was filled with the sound of metal clanging, which made his words stand out. As I held out the dishcloth to the sink, I stopped moving. "Excuse me." "You heard me," he said with a smirk. "Do you know how tiring it is to come home to this mess after a 12-hour shift?" I took a quick look around the clean kitchen. There was nothing wrong. What mess? I asked, getting angry. Drawing a finger at me, he crept up on me. Your life is a mess. You dropped out of high school, and now you work as a waitress and clean people's homes. Sounds good to you, right? When I heard what he said, my heart sank. I couldn't find the man I fell in love with. I also help out around the house, I finally managed to say, my voice shaking with anger. Justin laughed. Not really. Most of the bills are paid for by me. What you make is peanuts. I clenched my hands because I was getting angry, but I chose to stay calm. Justin, I'm doing my best, and I'm also taking care of my mom. That's not nothing. He laughed meanly and shook his head. Always your mom. You are stuck in stagnation, and you bring me down with you. As I turned away, I blinked back tears. His words were sharp and cut deep. The sound of his heavy breathing filled the room, and I could hear him behind me. You know what? I didn't want him to see me cry, so I said, maybe you'd be happier if I wasn't here. Maybe I would, he said, or maybe you could actually try to better yourself. I put my feet down firmly and turned around to face him. His eyes were cold and lacked the warmth I used to love in them. I said in a low voice, I thought we were partners, but you see me as a burden. He yelled, Ava, open your eyes. Partners respect each other. That's just a dream. Welcome to real life. His words hurt my feelings and made my mouth taste bad. I need some air, I told him as I walked past him to the front door. I didn't turn around, even though I could feel his eyes on my back. I finally let my tears fall when I was out on the street. It felt good to be free in the cool night air. I tried to figure out how quickly and so badly things had gone wrong. I met a nice, helpful man on a dating app, but now he's totally controlling and mean. As I walked, my thoughts went back to the early days of our relationship. I thought about the sweet texts, the late-night talks, and the empty vows. Sharon and I had to talk during one of my few breaks. The next afternoon, I went to see her at the old family home. She was lying on the couch and looked weak but happy. Hey, Mom, I said with a smile to hide how stressed I was. Hey, sweetheart, she said, stroking the space next to her. As soon as I sat down, she knew something wasn't right. Tell me what's wrong, she asked. I sighed and put my head back on the couch. Hi, Mom, it's Justin. He's changed, or I'm only now seeing the real him. She frowned, and worry filled her eyes. What happened? The way he talks to me, I started, but had to stop and think about what to say before I broke down. He treats me like I'm less than him, like I'm nothing. She put her hand on mine and squeezed it. Eva, you're not nothing. You're better than you think. I blinked away tears as she spoke. Thanks, Mom. Oh, I needed that. She put her hand on mine, and as we sat there in quiet, I knew then that I had to be strong for her and myself, no matter what the future held. Because Justin was mean, I wouldn't let it break my heart. Stop lying around and clean up this mess. Justin barked and shut the door behind him. It felt like an earthquake had hit the room because of how strong it was. Being tired made me angry, and I was very angry. I sucked at my breath and gripped the broom even tighter. I still need to go take care of Mom, even though I've been cleaning all day, I said in a calm voice. He laughed. You always have a reason, Alva. Do you think this is tough? Do what I do for just one day. I said, I'm doing my best, but my voice was shaking. Maybe if you could help once in a while. Justin cut me off and laughed meanly. My name is Doctor. Your time is worth 10 times what mine is. You should be thankful that I even talked to you." My knuckles turned white as I clenched my hands around the broom. I turned away from him because I didn't want to give him the pleasure of seeing me break. After taking a deep breath, I started to sweep quickly, and each stroke was a quiet protest. "You know my coworkers make fun of me," he said with a sneer. "They can't believe I'm stuck with someone like you." It hurt like 1,000 paper cuts when he spoke. "Then why don't you just leave?" It was something I said under my breath that he could hear. He came over quickly and grabbed the broom, throwing it away. "Because I need you too. You need my money and my fame. You're nothing without me." When I looked up at him, my anger came to the surface. "Justin, I don't need you. You can't treat me badly just because you have a fancy title." He moved closer into my space, and his eyes got narrow. "You be on the streets without me. Don't forget that the next time you want to complain." The stress was broken when my phone rang. It was on the counter, and when I grabbed it and saw my mom's number, it felt good to be free from this jail for a little while. "I have to go," I told Justin as I walked by. "My mom needs me." "Just get out," he growled, waving me away. Barely worth my time. As I left the room, his words echoed like a dark cloud behind me. The trip to my mom's house was a blur because I was thinking about getting away the whole time. How did things get so bad so fast? When I got to my mom's house, Sharon was having a hard time getting something from the top shelf in the kitchen. I jumped to help her and said, "Hey, Mom, you should have called me." She told me, "Thanks, sweetheart," with a warm smile that showed she was tired. I tried to smile back. "I'm okay, just busy. How do you feel today?" She sat down at the kitchen table with a teacup in her hand. "I'm fine, but you look upset. What took place?" When I tried to speak, the words got stuck in my throat. "It's just Justin," I was finally able to say. "He's being impossible again." She looked worried. "Eva, you don't need to put up with that. You should get more." "I know, Mom," I said in a voice that was almost whispery. "But it's hard to explain. I need to figure out what to do." That night, late at night, I went back to my room, dreading the argument I knew was coming. Justin was in bed with his back to me, making it clear that he didn't want to make things right. I lay down next to him and looked up at the ceiling. I made up my mind. I could not go on like this. I had to find out the truth about him. If there were any secrets, I would find them out and then make him pay for every insult and embarrassing moment. My resolution grew stronger, giving me a drive I didn't know I had. I would get proof, plan my next move, and reveal the person who believed he could treat people like things that could be thrown away. Soon, Justin would learn that anyone, even someone who is just okay, can fight back and win. As I stared at Justin's laptop screen, I told myself, this isn't just him being mean. This is illegal. As I slowly decrypted the encrypted emails, I saw a web of illegal actions that made my skin crawl. While shaking, I quickly took a picture of the embarrassing emails on my phone. I had found everything from deals for organ trafficking to deals for bribery. The attractive doctor was really a dangerous criminal. When the front door opened, my heart jumped a beat. I slammed the laptop shut and hit it again just as he walked in the room. He called out, "Eva," and his voice was surprisingly happy. "What's for dinner?" "I ordered takeout," I said with a fake smile to hide how excited I was. He gave me a strange look. "Why are you acting so weird?" "Weird?" I repeated, my voice staying the same. "Justin, I'm just tired. It's been a long day." He looked at me for a second and then shrugged. "So what?" "Set the table, please." My mind was racing as I set the table. What should I do next? Now, though, I had to keep my cool. I couldn't let him figure anything out. Later that week, when Justin kept working his normal night shifts, I became more careful about gathering proof. I made copies of files, photographed papers, and even recorded some of our talks. I felt more disgusted as I learned more. When we were having dinner together, Justin dropped another bomb. I've invited my parents over this weekend, he said in between bites. Our family is going to get together. By getting everything ready, you can show my mom how useful you are. I held back the angry response that came to mind. Okay, Justin, I'll take care of it. As the weekend got closer, I carefully got ready for both the party and the opposite situation. My heart raced with excitement as I met his parents when they got there. Evelyn smiled and hugged me, but Richard's serious face told me he wasn't buying the friendly front. At first, the dinner conversation was light and full of nice small talk. I tried to time everything just right when I served the food. As the talk changed, my heart beat faster. Justin, how's work been lately? Richard asked, his tone neutral. Justin smiled and said, as always, Dad, busy saving lives every day. The deception was so bad that I almost choked on my drink, but I kept quiet. I had to wait until the right time. Justin became more cocky as the night went on. Finally, he said something that really upset me. He looked at me and said, you know it's hard to balance such an important career with someone who doesn't do much. That was it? I could no longer handle it. Indeed, Justin, I told him in a calm voice. I believe it's time they knew the whole truth. Richard's eyes got very narrow, and Evelyn looked scared. What are you talking about, Eva? His voice was low and scary. As I took my phone out from the table, I said, these were on your desktop. I found them. Would you mind explaining? As the pictures of the false emails showed on the screen, his face turned pale. Evelyn gasped and put her hand over her mouth, and Richard's face turned red with anger. What is this? Justin? Evelyn asked, her voice shaking. Justin stuttered as he tried to come up with a lie, but there was too much proof against him. He begged, it's not what it looks like, but the room was already against him. Richard stood up and looked serious. Is this real, Justin? Hadn't you been doing anything illegal? Justin's silence said a lot. Evelyn broke down in tears, and Richard's eyes were angry and sad. How could you? The fight had already started, and there was no going back. The fact that the truth was finally out in the open made me feel very good. It looked like Justin's world was about to fall apart, and I was ready for it. You think your job gives you power over me? More than who? I spoke, and my quiet voice cut through the tense room like a knife. The pictures on my phone were still being looked over by Justin's parents. Evelyn's face was covered in tears and looked broken, and Richard looked like he was about to lose it from anger. That isn't important now, though. Eva, you better watch your mouth, Justin growled, his eyes filled with anger and fear. Enough is enough, I said. It's time to turn the tables. I felt a strange calm wash over me. You've treated me like dirt for too long, and now everyone will see who you really are. Richard stepped in when Justin lunged at me. He yelled, you stay right where you are, as his face was right next to Justin's. Have you lost your mind, son? Dad, it's not what it looks like, Justin said, but his voice didn't sound full of confidence. He looked squished, like an animal stuck in a corner. Evelyn softly cried, and her body shook. Justin, how could you? We were proud of how well you were raised. Justin looked all over the room quickly, trying to find a way out. He growled, trying to get back in charge. "Eva, get out now." "No," was my strong answer. "I'm not going. You are the one who has to deal with the trouble." The tone of Richard's voice changed as he spoke to me. "Eva, I'm sorry for what you've been through, but we need to get to the bottom of this." I gave them a nod and stepped back to let the talk go on. Justin's face looked tense, and the friendly doctor persona was starting to show. Richard's strict legal tone made it clear that there was no room for debate. "Justin, you must come clean." It was hard for Justin to say, but he finally spoke. "You don't understand, Dad. I did it to help people. People lived longer because of these organ traits." Evelyn let out a gasp and put her hands to her mouth. "Justin, you can't do that. You put everyone and everything at risk for money." Justin's face turned red from anger and shame. "Mom, it's not just about the money. It's hard to explain. Complicated." Evelyn let out a cry. "This is criminal." For a moment, there was silence in the room. What had been said hung in the air like a dark storm cloud. I couldn't help but feel a little better. Finally, Justin was being held responsible for what he did. Richard shook his head and looked his son straight in the eye. "You need to go to jail. You can only make up for what you've done by doing this." Justin took a step back, his face going pale. "Dad, you can't be serious." "I'm very serious," Richard said in a firm voice. "If you don't, I will." Justin's eyes got bigger in fear. He looked at me with a face that was both angry and begging. "Ava, please don't do this." When he looked at me, I stood my ground and didn't move. "Justin, this isn't about getting even anymore. It's about what's right and wrong." With tears running down her face, Evelyn stood up and put her hand on Justin's arm. "Justin, we love you, but you must take responsibility for your actions." "Traitor." While Justin's eyes glared at me, his lips stayed pressed together in a thin line. He gave up and looked at his father. "Fine, fine, if that's what it takes." As Richard quickly called each number on his phone, it was the last straw in Justin's case. "I'm calling our lawyer. We're going to take this to court." The sound of Richard's words making plans filled the room, and I felt a mix of relief and fear. Even though this was just the start, at least the truth was out. As I watched Justin slouched over and staring at the floor, the man who used to be in charge of me was now seeing everything he cared about fall apart. I had hope for once, hope for myself, for my mother, and for justice. Even though I didn't know what would happen in the future, one thing was certain: I would no longer be a slave. "Is this real, Justin? What have you been doing to trade lives for cash?" Evelyn grabbed her son's arm, her voice shaking with shock. It was like being in court in the dining room. Justin was squished and pale, his eyes looking down. He struggled to say, "Mom, but the words wouldn't come. Now that the truth was out in the open, I felt like I had been set right. "It's all true," I said with a clear voice. "Justin has done criminal things like liver trafficking and taking bribes. I have all the proof." Richard put the phone down. "The lawyer is on his way. Justin, you need to start explaining yourself." Until then, Justin jerked. "Dad, it's not as easy as you think." "You always have a choice," Richard replied. "And you chose crime." Evelyn softly cried and put her hand on her forehead. "This is not possible. How could you do this to us?" "Your patience." Justin clenched his hands, and all of his attempts to look in charge fell apart. It wasn't just for money. Some of these people were in a tough spot. People's lives were saved. And how many lives were ruined? I replied, looking him straight in the eyes. You think your good intentions justify breaking the law, exploiting people? Richard put up his hand. Eva is right. No matter what your reason is, this is still wrong. Justin looked all over the room for a friend but couldn't find one. Please, Dad and Mom, I can fix this. Please give me a chance. No, Justin, Richard said in a low voice. I want you to take the blame for this. Our family name is on the line. And more than that, you need to change what you did. There was a tense silence in the room as Justin seemed to break down in front of his father. It was strange to see this man, who used to be strong, now trapped and weak. The quiet was broken by the doorbell. Richard looked at me and nodded to make sure I was sure. That must be the attorney. There was not only the family lawyer standing next to the door when I opened it. There was also a police officer there. With no words, I took a step back to let them in. The lawyer shook Evelyn's hand and gave her a serious nod. Richard, he said, I've briefed the officer about the situation. Justin's eyes got really big with fear. Dad, you called the police. I had to, Richard said firmly, though his voice got a little softer. It's the right thing to do. The police officer moved forward. Justin Parker, you are being arrested for your part in bribery and illegal organ trafficking. You are allowed to keep quiet. Justin took one last look at his parents, and his eyes were filled with pain. Please help me. Evelyn was crying a lot, but she didn't say anything. Richard let out a heavy sigh. We'll get you a lawyer, Justin, but you must face the consequences. When the police officer put on the handcuffs, Justin didn't fight back. His eyes met mine and begged in silence, but I didn't feel sorry for him. This was right. Enough lying to you, Justin. Now everyone knows who you really are, I said quietly as they led Justin away. I felt the weight of the last few months lift off my shoulders. Evelyn fell into Richard's arms and started crying furiously. His face showed that he was both sad and determined as he held her. Richard looked at me and said, You did the right thing. That shouldn't happen to anyone or make them live in fear. Thank you for being brave. As I tried to speak, I could only nod. While justice was messy and hearts were broken, it was a step that had to be taken. After telling the truth, I was no longer under Justin's cruel control. I felt strangely calm as I watched from outside as the police car drove away. Once upon a time, Justin was strong and cruel, but now he was just a man dealing with the results of his deeds. I felt free for the first time in what seemed like a long time. The day after Justin was arrested, the news was all over the place. Reporters came up to our apartment building and asked me a lot of questions while their cameras flashed. Eva, how long did you know? What did you find? Now that everything is public, how do you feel? Enough lying to you, Justin. Now everyone knows who you really are. I told them, and it was even more true now. It made me feel like things were fair. As I looked around at the chaos, it would be fair, even if it was a messy process. A police officer was able to make room for me. Eva Hall, Detective Mills would like to speak with you. Thank you, I said, and then I followed the cop to a parked sit-in that wasn't marked. Detective Sarah Mills was waiting inside, but you couldn't tell what she was thinking. I was told to sit down by her. Eva, I need to hear everything from the start. Everything about what you found and how you found it. Being outside was still making my heart race, so I found a seat. I found Justin's emails, I said to start. He'd been encrypting messages about illegal organ trades and bribes. Detective Mills said, Yes, we looked over the evidence you gave us and started our investigation. The search for his partners is already going better thanks to you. I felt a wave of relief. What happens now? Now we're getting more proof and getting ready to charge him, Iva. The process will take a long time. Are you all set? I took a big breath. Yes, I'm ready. I won't give up now that I've come this far. Detective Mills gave a small smile. All right. What a great thing you did, Eva. Not many people would have been brave enough to do what you did. I gave a firm nod. Thank you, Detective. The next few hours were spent going over the details one by one. It was tiring to go over each painful finding again, but I knew it had to be done. When we were done, the sun was going down, creating long shadows over the chaos outside. Finally, I looked at the crowd of reporters leaving and knew it was time to get my life back. As I walked back to our flat, each step made me more determined. I called my mom that night. Hey, Mom, it's over. Justin has been caught. You could feel her relief. Eva, I'm so proud of you. You've been very strong. I said, I couldn't have done it without you, and my voice cracked a little. It's been hard, but it was worth it. Come home, sweetheart, she said in a soft voice. We can start over together. I'll be there soon, Mom. As I put my things away, I noticed how empty the apartment was. This place used to be full of hope and love, but now it only held bad memories and broken dreams. I had to leave everything behind in order to move on. I woke up early the next morning, just as the sun was starting to rise. Before leaving with my bags, I took one last look around the flat. It was cool outside, and the world seemed strangely quiet without all the noise from the news. I took a deep breath and felt better than I had in years. I'm done being your victim, Justin. I told myself in a low voice as I walked to my car. Now it's time to live my life. As I drove away, the city skyline and the confusion that had been my life for so long seemed to fade away. The road ahead was long and full of unknowns and difficulties, but I felt ready to face it for the first time. When I got to my mom's house, she greeted me with open arms and made me feel at ease. I gave her a tight hug because I knew that we could fix our lives together. This was only the start. Now it was time to start over with a new road full of hope, strength, and a future I could finally take charge of. She then said, "We'd like to help if you'll let us. Financially, emotionally, whatever you need." I was unsure. It was hard for me to accept their help, but I knew it would make things easier. Thanks for that. Let us do it one step at a time. The days turned into weeks, and every once in a while, I went to see Justin's parents. Even though things were bad, they offered real support because they wanted to make up for what their son had done. Evelyn even helped take care of Mom sometimes, which was a nice surprise. In the evening, Richard showed up with a sad face. "Hi, Eva. I wanted to let you know that we set up a fund for you and Sharon. We should at least try." I got tears in my eyes. This act moved me so much. "Thank you, Richard. You have no idea how much this means to me." He nodded, but the stress in his face showed that his family was in trouble. "We owe it to you," he said. Even though it was hard, a feeling of justice and closure started to fill the hole that Justin's abuse had left. Every little thing Evelyn and Richard did helped make our lives a little easier. It was an odd union made possible by both of their tragedies and their need to forgive each other. Mom grabbed my hand one night as I put her to bed. "Eva, I'm so proud of you. Thanks for everything you've done for us." When I smiled, I felt warmth go through my chest. "Thanks, Mom. I only want us to be pleased." The news talked a lot about Justin's court case. From our living room, I saw him get his sentence. That person who had tried to hurt me was now paying for what he did. It was true that freedom tasted bittersweet, but justice was strong. I found strength I didn't know I had. As the days turned into months, my job at the cafe became more stable, giving me a regular income that let me spend more time with my mom. Even though her health was still bad, our relationship got stronger every day. Evelyn and Richard's help changed from giving money to becoming real friends. After the disaster we both went through, we became unexpected allies. Sitting on the porch with my mom one weekend to enjoy the cool breeze, she smiled at me. "Ava, what do you envision for the future?" I paused to consider her query. "I see us together, happy and free from the past, but I'm not sure yet." With a nod, she revealed her pride in her eyes. "I think that sounds about right." I felt hopeful once more when the sun set and the sky turned pink and orange. Promises made in the past brought me a fresh start. For the first time, I was able to see a brighter future with this fresh start that was filled of love, strength, and purpose. Building it one step at a time was my task.